Junko Furuta, born on January 18, 1971 in Misato, Saitama, Japan. She's died January 4, 1989 at age 17. Adaki, Tokyo, Japan. Junko Furuta was just 17 years old. High school student, Furuta was known for being pretty, bright, and getting good grades at Yashio-Minami High School. Furuta was well liked by her classmates, and very infrequent absences. Despite her good girl reputation, she didn't drink, smoke, or use drugs. She was quite popular at school, and seemingly had a bright future ahead of her, and had dreams of becoming an idol singer. One of them, Hiroshi Miyano, had a crush on her, but not looking for a relationship. Hiroshi Miyano was known as the school bully, often bragging about his being involved with the new generations of the Yakuza. After all, no one had ever dared to reject him, but Junko Furuta turned him down. A few days after the rejection, Miyano and Minato were hanging around a local park in Misato, preying on innocent women. As experienced gang rapists, Miyano and Minato were experts at spotting potential targets. On November 25, 1988, around 8:30 p.m., the boys noticed Junko Furuta on her bicycle. At the time, she was on her way home from her part-time job at an electronics retailer. She was kidnapped, beaten, tortured, and raped by 4 boys with very unimaginable way, and finally death after 44 days. It is described as one of the worst cases in post-war Japan. Hiroshi Miyano told his friend, Nobuharu Minato kicked Furuta off of her bike and run away, creating a diversion, at which point Miyano stepped in, pretending to be an innocent and concerned bystander. After helping her up, he asked her if she wanted an escort home. Miyano instead took Furuta to an abandoned warehouse, where he raped and beat her. He told her that he had connections to the Yakuza, knew where her family lived, and would kill them if she told the police. Miyano led Furuta to an abandoned warehouse, where he told her of his Yakuza connections and raped her, threatening to kill her and her family if she made a sound. Around 3 o'clock a.m., Miyano took Furuta to a nearby park, where Minato, Ogura, and Watanabe were waiting. They had learned her home address from a notebook in her backpack, and told her they knew where she lived, and that Yakuza members would kill her family if she attempted to escape. The 4 boys overpowered her, took her to a house in the Ayase district of Adaki, and gang raped her. The house, which was owned by Minato's parents, soon became their regular gang hangout. They took Furuta to Minato's parents' house. Junko Furuta was their captive, their sex slave, and their punching bag. They held her for 44 days after abducting her on November 25, 1988. They mercilessly tortured her for weeks on end. After 3 days missing, on 27 November, Furuta's parents contacted the police about her disappearance, working with the police to try and find her. Her captors knew this and forced Furuta to call her parents to tell them she ran away and to not look for her. To discourage further investigation, the kidnappers forced her to call her mother 3 times to convince her that she had run away, but was safe and staying with some friends. They also forced Furuta to stop the police investigation. When Minato's parents were present, Furuta was forced to act as his girlfriend. They dropped this pretense when it became clear that Minato's parents would not report them to the police. Minato's parents later claimed they did not intervene because they were afraid, as their own son was increasingly violent toward them. On the night of 28 November, Miyano invited 2 other boys, Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara, E and F, respectively, to the Minato house. They went to the upstairs room, where Junko was sitting, wearing a long-sleeve t-shirt and a skirt that Miyano had stolen from a clothing store a few days prior. They drank cough medicine, pretending it was drugs, and acted high. Furuta tried to run away, screaming in fear. Miyano grabbed her legs, and Ihara put a pillow over her face. The parents were awakened and went to check on the scream, to which Minato told them that it was nothing. The group then proceeded to gang Furuta. During this time, she was in a state of unconsciousness, staring at the ceiling without blinking. Minato's brother and parents knew a girl was in the house. The captors tried to say that Furuta was a girlfriend to one of them, but they didn't believe them. Minato's brother and parents didn't care, saying they were too scared because of Minato's anger. his Yakuza ties, and their reputation. The captors would brag to their friends about keeping Furuta captive. They would invite people over to also rape Furuta. At least 30 people did this. It's believed that over 100 people did this by the end. 500 different times, with up to 12 different men in a day. During the night where her captors got drunk, Furuta tried to escape. She crawled downstairs and tried to call the police, but Miyano found her, took the phone, and told the police that he called the wrong number. They set her on fire, put her head on concrete, and stomped on it. After a while, they had beaten her so badly that they didn't find her attractive anymore. They hung her to the ceiling fan by her wrists and used her as a human punching bag. According to the group statements, the four shaved her pubic hair, forced her to dance to music while naked and masturbate in front of them, and left her on the balcony in the middle of the night with little clothing. They shoved objects such as a lit match, metal pole, knives and wood, iron, bars, scissors, skewers, fireworks, and even a lit light bulb into her vagina and anus, destroying her internal anatomy, which left her unable to defecate or urinate properly. Her eyelids and genitals were burned with cigarettes, lighters, and hot wax. Due to dehydration, Furuta would vomit, which caused the captors to become angry and beat her even more. They force-fed her with large amounts of alcohol, fed her water, milk, and her own urine. She was also forced to smoke multiple cigarettes at once and inhale paint thinner. In one incident, Miyano repeatedly burned Furuta's legs and arms with lighter fluid. Due to not being able to control her bladder because of how badly they beat her, they also forced her to eat live cockroaches. They would force her to be naked most of the time, putting her in a freezer and making her sleep on the balcony in cold weather. By the end of December, Furuta was severely malnourished after being fed only small amounts of food and eventually only milk. Due to her severe injuries and infected burns, she couldn't walk. She became unable to go to the downstairs toilet and became confined to the floor of Minato's room in a state of extreme weakness. Furuta's appearance was drastically altered from the brutality of the attacks. Her face was so swollen that it was difficult to make out her features. Her body was also severely crippled, giving off a rotting smell that caused the four boys to lose sexual interest in her. As a result, the boys kidnapped and gang-raped a 19-year-old woman who, like Furuta, was on her way home from work. On 4 January 1989, after a defeat in Mayong, Minato and the boys were angry, so they beat and burned her for 2 hours. Miyano decided to take his anger out on Furuta by pouring lighter fluid on her body and setting her on fire. Furuta allegedly made attempts to put out the fire, but gradually became unresponsive. They continued to punch her, ignited a candle and dripped hot wax on her face, placed 2 short candles on her eyelids, and forced her to drink her own urine. After she was kicked, she fell onto a stereo unit and collapsed into a fit of convulsions. Since she was bleeding profusely and pus was emerging from her infected burns, the 4 boys covered their hands in plastic bags. They continued to beat her and dropped an iron exercise ball onto her stomach several times. The attack reportedly lasted 2 hours. Furuta eventually succumbed to her wounds and died. Less than 24 hours after her death, Minato's brother called to tell him that Furuta appeared to be dead. Afraid of being penalized for murder, the group wrapped her body in blankets and shoved her into a travel bag. They then put her body in a 55-gallon 210-liter drum and filled it with wet concrete. Around 8:00 p.m., they loaded it and eventually disposed of the drum in a cement truck in KT, Tokyo. During her captivity, Furuta had mentioned to her captors several times that she regretted not being able to watch the finale episode of Tombo Dragonfly. Miyano found the videotape of the episode and placed it in the travel bag. As he later explained, it was not because he pitied Furuta, but because he did not want her to return as a ghost and haunt him. On 23 January 1989, Miyano and Ogura were arrested for the gang rape of the 19-year-old girl whom they had kidnapped in December. On 29 March, 2 police officers came to interrogate them, as women's underwear had been found at their addresses. During the interrogation, Miyano believed that one of the officers was aware of his culpability in Furuta's murder. Thinking that Ogura had confessed, to to the crimes against Furuta, Miyano told the police where to find Furuta's body. The police were initially puzzled by the confession, as they had been referring to the murder of a different woman and her 7-year-old son that had occurred 9 days prior to Furuta's abduction, a case which remains unsolved. The police found the drum containing Furuta's body the following day. She was identified via fingerprints. On April 1, 1989, Ogura was arrested for a separate sexual assault, and subsequently re-arrested for Furuta's murder. The arrest of Watanabe, Minato, and Minato's brother followed. Several other accomplices who participated in abusing and raping Furuta were officially identified, including Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara, who were charged with rape after their DNA was found on and inside the victim's body. One of the most tragic things about Junko Furuta's agonizing torture and eventual murder is that it all could have been prevented. Twice, the police were alerted to Furuta's condition and they failed to intervene both times. The first time, a boy who had been invited over to the Minato house by Miyano went home after seeing Furuta and told his brother about what was happening. The brother then decided to tell his parents, who contacted the police. The authorities showed up at the Minato residence, but were assured by the family that there was no girl inside. The answer was clearly satisfactory enough for the police, as they never returned to the home. The second time, it was Furuta herself who called the cops, but before she was able to say anything, the boys discovered her. When the police called back, Miyano assured them that the prior call had been a mistake. The authorities never followed up again. The boys then punished Furuta for calling the police, dousing her legs in lighter fluid, and setting her on fire. Hiroshi got confused and thought they were talking about Furuta. He thought that the other boys had told police about her, so he told police about what happened to Furuta and told them where her body was. They had to identify her by fingerprints because her face was so badly beaten. The autopsy also revealed that she was pregnant. After being told about the details of her murder, Furuta's mother fainted and was entered into a psychiatric hospital. The Japanese police didn't reveal their names because they were underage, but Aiken Bunshin, a Japanese magazine, found and leaked their names, saying that they were inhuman and didn't deserve human rights. They were first going to be trialed as juveniles, but it was later decided that they would be trialed as adults because of public backlash. They got light sentences. They were not charged with murder, instead being charged with causing bodily injury resulting in death. Hiroshi got 17 years, but it was later upgraded to 20 after an appeal. Minato got 5 to 7 years, Watanabe got 9 years, and Jay got 8 years. After being released, Minato changed his name to Shinji and was later arrested for the attempted murder of a businessman. Jay changed his name to Jay Kamisaku. He bragged about Furuta's murder. Jay's father felt shame and said that he would give his entire life savings to Furuta's family. Jay took the money and spent it on himself instead. Jay's mother blamed Furuta for ruining her son's life and allegedly vandalized Furuta's tombstone. Yet each of them walked free after relatively short prison terms. While it is not clear why their sentences were so short, the most likely answer was that they were tried as juveniles rather than adults, based on the Japanese legal system at the time. Junko Furuta's funeral was held on April 2, 1989. One of her friends' memorial address stated,
"Welcome back. I have never imagined that we would see you again in this way. You must have been in so much pain, so much suffering. The happy we all made for the school festival looked really good on you. We will never forget you. I have heard that the principal has presented you with a graduation certificate. So we graduated together, all of us. Jun-chan, there is no more pain, no more suffering. Please rest in peace."
Furuta's intended future employer presented her parents with the uniform she would have worn in the position she had accepted. The uniform was placed in her casket. At her graduation, Furuta's school principal presented her a high school diploma, which was given to her parents. The location near where Furuta's body was discovered has been developed since and is now Wakasu Park. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. God bless.